we're going to have a look at simple interest. This is something you have done before, so hopefully it'll feel somewhat familiar once we get into it. So simple interest is basically based on this idea of interest. And interest is where you give your money to someone else, and for the privilege of being able to have your money and use your money for whatever they want, they give you a little bit of money. So on a really simple level, it could be just you giving $20 to your sister, and she's like, great, I can use this money for whatever I want for the next year. As a thank you, I'll give you $2 just to say thank you. Plus, at the end of the year, she'll give you back the $20 as well. So you end up making money from it because you get back your $20 plus you get the $2 that she paid you to say thanks. Okay, so let's fill in our first close exercise about simple interest. There are many different ways to make money. One way to make money is to lend our money to the bank. And that's the most common place where you're going to get interest, but you can also get it from other financial institutions. The bank will pay us a small amount for letting them keep and use our money for a while. Interest is a percentage charged for the use of someone else's money. This means the money we get from the bank for letting them have our money and use it for a little while is calculated as a percentage of the money we give them. So when we give the bank money, they don't say, oh, just give us any amount and we'll pay you $10 for it if we can keep it for the year. Instead, they say, we will pay you 3% of the amount you give us. So the more you give the bank, the more you get as a little bit of a thank you, the more interest you get. However, it also means you can't use that money you've given away for the year or whatever time you've given it to the bank. So we're going to start by looking at simple interest and look at compound interest next. So simple interest is calculated using the following formula. Interest is the principal times the rate, which is a percentage, times time. And we can shorten that to just interest is I, principal is P, rate is R, and time is T. Here's a definition for each of them. Principal means the amount that we give to the bank. It can also mean the amount we borrow from the bank. So it can work in reverse where we borrow money from the bank and have to give it back at the end of like a year or 5 years, but we also have to give them little bits in between to say thank you for letting us have your money. The rate, as I said, that's the percentage, and it's written as a decimal. The time, that's how long we give our money to the bank or how long we borrow money from the bank. And here's how we calculate it. So first of all, we just have to figure out in the question what the principal, the rate, and the time are. Usually all that information is given. We have to ensure the time is in years and the rate is as a decimal. And then we just use the formula P times R times T to find the interest. Oops. Got some tips over here on the side. Recall that to make a percentage a decimal, you just divide it by 100. So that's going to look like if, for example, my rate was 6%, I would just write 6 into my calculator and then I go divided by 100 and it turns it into a decimal for me, okay? And then here is to convert your various time lengths to years, because sometimes it will give you the rate in months and things like that, but we need to change it to years. Okay, let's have a look at a few questions. Zach puts $3,000 in the bank for 2 years. The bank pays 9% interest PA. PA means per annum. You might want to make a note of that underneath. Per annum or per year. Annum just means year. Per annum / year. You've got annual, which means yearly. Annum also means year. How much interest does he get? Let's have a look back up here at my steps. Highlight the principal, rate, and time. Okay, So I'm going to highlight my principal. That's the original amount, $3,000. The rate, 9%. And the time, 2 years. Good, I've done my first step. Ensure the time is in years and the rate is as decimal. Well, I'm going to write down these things. I've got P, which is my principal, that was 3,000. My rate, that's 9%. And my time, that's 2 years. It says, ensure the time is in years. Yes, my time is already in years. The rate is as a decimal. My rate is not a decimal. I need to change 9% to be a decimal. To do that, as it said above, you go the number divided by 100. And if I do that on my calculator, 9 divided by 100 is 0.09. So now we're going to use our formula. The formula is P times, might actually move this one across so we've got a little bit more space. Start it again over here. P times R times T equals interest. My principal, that was my $3,000, times my rate. I'm going to put down the decimal value of my rate, 0.09, times my time. That was already in years, is 2. And then I just punch all of that into my calculator. I've got 3,000 times 0.09 times 2, and I get 540. So that means Zach would get $540 for putting his $3,000 in the bank for 2 years. And remember, at the end of the 2 years, he also gets back his $3,000. So for this whole thing, he makes $540 and he still has his original $3,000. Let's have a look at the next page. Now, this is more exercises getting you to practice the simple interest formula. Okay, it says calculate the simple interest, just going to zoom in a bit more, earned on an investment of $15,000 at 5.2% over 30 months. An investment means I put my money into the bank. An investment is good for me. So first of all, I have to highlight the parts of my question. Investment of $15,000. My rate is 5.2%. And my time period is 30 months. I'm also going to write that down the side. Principal, 15,000. That's the amount that I start with. My rate is 5.2%, and my time is 30 months. Before I can jump straight into my calculation, let's recall that your rate needs to be as a decimal. So that's going to be the number divided by 100, which in this case would be 0.052. Also, my time needs to be in years. So to convert months to years, and if you're stuck with this, you can go back to the last slide. So to convert months to years, I have to go months divided by 12. Let's come back up here. My months is 30 months, so I'm going to go 30 divided by 12. 2.5, it's okay if it's a decimal. Okay, I've got my time in years, my rate is a decimal, and my principal. I can now use my formula. My formula is principal times rate times time equals interest. Principal, 15,000. Times rate as a decimal times time equals $1,950. Okay, so now you've got a bit of a sense for how to calculate this. I want you to have a work through this table underneath. This is literally just getting you to use the formula, but remember, your interest needs to be as a decimal. So I think, first of all, I'd convert all these to decimals. How? By dividing the number by 100. Also, you need to make sure all your times are in years. With this one, it's got 2 years, 6 months. Well, the 2 years is already in years, but I need to change the 6 months to years. So for that, I would go 6 divided by 12, and that's going to be 0.5. So this would turn into 2.5. Okay. So you've got the information there to find out your interest paid. Your total at the end of the period is going to be how much you started with plus the interest that you earned. Okay. So let's do it for this first one. I know that my 6% is going to turn into 0.06. 3 years, that's already in years. So I'll go 4,000 times 0.06 times 3. I get 720. To find out the total at the end of the period, I need to write in how much I started with, which was 4,000, plus 720. And that's going to be $4,720. Okay? Have a go at filling in that table. The questions underneath are fairly similar, so I'd encourage you to have a go at those ones as well.